I don't need
Okay,
Reb
thank you.
David having proof.
All right, let's see if we can let's see if we can get Peretz to we can finish the daf of Peretz before he takes off. Okay. My Havi Allah. That's what we're up to. About 10 lines down on Zayin Amar Aleph. Oh, before I forget, tomorrow's daf, because I'm flying back. My flight is 7:25. So if we can please do the daf around 6:25, that would be much appreciated. 6:25. We'll post it tomorrow. Bez Hashem. Okay, thank you. So anyway, so my Havi Allah the Masusa. What's the din by the Masusa? Again, we had three cases here of people fighting over things. We have a case of our Mishnah with the talis. Then we had the case of the Masusa, which two guys fighting over a bathhouse, which we're going to see it's not really a bathhouse. And then we also had the well, it's really only two cases. Well, okay, meaning there's the talis stam fighting over the talis. Then they made the talis hektish, right? And then there's the bathhouse, right? So bottom line is one guy they're fighting over the bathhouse, and one of the guys made it into hektish. So most of the gedolim, if you want to call them, whoever amiroyim, stayed away from the bathhouse. So the shaila was, does the guy have a right when he's fighting over the bathhouse to make it into hektish, right? So bottom line is my havila. Whenever the Gemara asks my havila, it means wants to know what's the bottom line. My havila the masusa. So Toshima Domar Rav Chiya Avin Hava Uvda Bei Rav Chisda. There was a story by Rav Chisda Bei Rav Huna, and then Rav Chisda brought it to Rav Huna. Upashta Mehad Amar Rav Nachman, and they said pshat from this. The Rav Nachman said, "Kol mom shein yochel lotzia b'dayanin." Any money that you can't take out with dayanim, meaning you don't have proof. Hiktesha ain't a kodesh, it's not kodesh. Meaning, if you don't have enough proof that the dayanim could give it to you, then you can't make it hektish, because that means you don't have enough of a grip on this thing. If the
Where are you
dayanim
being
can't give
mighty
it
from
to
over there? A bathhouse is not, nobody's mostly
you.
in a bathhouse.
What do you mean?
A
Can't be taken
bathhouse is
away from another
karka.
guy.
How
No.
would you take it away from anyone? Nobody's mostly in it.
Why not? You can't. Why can't you have a chazak on karka?
You can try. Nobody's actually mostly in it like a talis. We don't have a cheskes marikama here.
No, I'm saying
If we did, we paskin that person would get it.
No, let's say the guy had the bathhouse for 5 years.
Then it says.
No, and then the guy.
Marikama. What's the shaila then?
No, so let's say the guy brings proof, right?
Then you can be mighty. But I'm saying over here, there are two people fighting over it. Nobody has any proof to anything.
Right, but right, exactly. So Cole's on that he can't bring proof.
But you're not being mighty over here. That's my point. You can't. What's the lashon?
Well. Anyways, the Gemara is going to see the Gemara. We're going to see from the Gemara. We're going to see from the Gemara that it's not talking about a bathhouse, but
I'm
I
saying
don't know.
the Gemara's shaila is like a bathhouse. My Havilah is on a case of a bathhouse.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so okay, we'll see when the Gemara's maskana. Anyway, so it's saying, so how can you take it? It's there's no way to make it hektish if you don't bring enough proof for the dayanim. So it certainly doesn't work for the to make it hektish. So Gemara asks, but let's say theoretically you would be able to prove it with dayanim, meaning you'd bring proper proof. Hekteshe kadosh, you can make it hektish, avagav delay afke, even though you didn't actually pull it out. If he steals it and the bailim did not give up, meaning you stole something from somebody and there was no yish, right? Rabbanan, like your knives. Well, the knives, right? We're assuming that there is yish, right? Both of them cannot make it hektish. This one because it's not his. This one because it's not in his rishus. So you see that even if you know you're going to be able to prove it, you still can't have it. You can't make it hektish. So how can this guy make this hektish? So the Gemara answers, "Misavas masusa metalpelin askinon." If you think that we're talking about metaltalin, but masusa mekarkoyas kinon. We're talking about karka, that when you take it with dayanim, then it's considered in your rishus, and therefore you are able to be makdish it. Right? So that's the end of the sugya of what the sugya that's for whatever reason. I'm not sure why it's called Takvakayan, but that is the end of the sugya of Takvakayan, which the Gemara is basically saying that if it would be karka and the guy would have some sort of proof, then even if he never gains control of the karka, it would still be able to become hektish. By the beged, we came out the maskana that there was no answer, right?
No answer for any of them, Yaakov.
No, this one we answered. Masusa we answered.
Yeah, if you could bring a raya, they didn't have a raya.
I'm saying, but theoretically, if a guy could bring a raya, then he makes it hektish and it becomes a hektish.
Right, but the Gemara shaila is if you makdish it anyways, and without the raya, is that enough to be milchzik in it?
Right. The third case was Bechar. That's what it was. Right. Okay, let's see.
Talus doesn't work.
What?
The talus does not work. You can't make it active.
Talus
does not work. We answered that. It doesn't work.
No, I thought it was a teiko. I don't know, it was a teiko. I thought we didn't answer it.
Well, we just answered it again with Rabbi Yochanan.
I mean, if you go with Rabbi Yochanan, then there's no question. That's true. Yes, yeah, that's true. Right. If we go with Rabbi Yochanan, which I think we do, that's what you're saying. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, let's see. So if you have two guys holding on to a talis, this one goes until his hand reaches, and this one goes until his hand reaches. And the rest you split equally. Right? So this is different than our mission, even though it seems to be the same case. Right? Two people holding on to a talis. Here the Gemara is saying each one gets the part that where his hand is up to, and the rest you split. So Machvi lay Rabavo, so Rabavo showed or signaled, right? Ubeshvua. Meaning, I don't know, he picked up his hands like this. I don't know if he was making like a face, like a Rebbe. I don't know. But he went, like Rashi says, he put his fingers klape malo. Ubeshvua, and he said, you have to make a shvua. They have to make a shvua on everything, right? Meaning not only on what they're splitting, but even what's in his hand. That's what Tosfos says. Right? So what about our Mishnah? Our Mishnah doesn't say this. Our Mishnah says they just split the whole thing. So what's that case? Our Mishnah is talking about where they're both holding on to the edges of the talus, meaning neither one of them is actually holding on to the talus. They're sort of holding on to what a real talus has, those tassels. What we just had it, right? We discussed it. What we discussed it, right? What was it, Nageya? Oh yeah, the last daf in Bava Kama. Last daf in Bava Kama with the tassels. Yeah, fine. So Amar Rabbi Shashi Shmamino. So if that's the case, that whatever somebody holds in his hand is considered his, and then we can learn out from this a din that has to do with kinyan chalip. And high sudra, if you have a sudra, which is a handkerchief, right? Even the toughest base shalosh al shalosh, since he's holding at least 3 fingers by 3 fingers, right? Karina Bay, we call it then it's considered giving to his friend. Meaning when you do kinyan chalip, so basically you take a handkerchief. And I mean, the way we do it was the one place we do it is, 2 places we do it. By chasana, the chasan does it, and by mechiras chametz. So what the Gemara is saying is that you see that if something's in your hand, it's considered yours. So then when you hand over, once you hand over let's call it a handkerchief to the other fellow, and the other fellow, whatever you're buying from him, he's giving to you in exchange for taking this handkerchief. So once he has 3 fingers by 3 fingers in his hand, then it's considered like the handkerchief went into his hand. The command, the pasuk dummy, it's as if we look at it as if we cut off that handkerchief. The part that's in his hand is cut off from the rest. Bekani, and he is, and therefore he's kainet, and therefore the transaction takes place. Meaning again, you're giving the handkerchief to somebody, and he's giving you back something in exchange, whatever it is that you buy. So we're saying that the part that's in the hand, when it gets cut off, so then that's when once it's in his hand, we look at it as if it's cut off.
I don't know why I thought of this now. Could they be having a fight? Who's being Mekayim the mitzvah Shavas Aved? It's not either one. This guy said I'm the one who's doing a Shavas Aved, and this one said no, I'm doing it. I grabbed it before him. The same fight, but not to get ownership. Would it be the same fight? You wouldn't cut it up because they both know it doesn't belong to them.
You're asking us the schar?
I'm not sure what I'm asking. Maybe you got me in the mood for Shari Chuv. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what that scenario would be.
Fine.
Yeah, okay. So Gemara says, Rav Chisda get biyada, mashicha biyada. So why is it different than a get? Because Rav Chisda says if he puts the get into her hand, but mashicha biyada, there's a string. This is called giving a get with strings attached, right? So he gave the get, and there's a string attached, and he's holding the string, right? So if he's able to pull the get and it goes to him, then Eina Megareshes, she's not divorced because it's not considered hers totally. He still has control. If love, and if not, meaning if he pulls it, then it won't come. So then she is considered divorced, right? So how come there, even though it's in her hand, why don't we say it's in her hand? The same way we're saying this handkerchief, once it's in his hand, or the talus when they're fighting over it, whatever's in their hand, they get to keep, right? So then why don't you say the same thing by a get? So when I answers Hasam Krisus being on there, you need chorus. It needs to be cut off. The husband and wife need to be totally cut off from each other. You don't have that. So here you just need one person to give to the other person. So you have that, and that's enough, right? Yeah. Then Taisus is interesting. Taisus says if she can hold on to this get really tight, and he won't be able to pull it to himself. She's still not divorced. Why? Because when it went into her hand, he was able, meaning before she clenched her fist, he still had the ability to pull the get towards him. Right? So Mela Tais is saying that still wouldn't be a good get. Right? Unless again, if he doesn't have the ability at all, meaning he never had the ability to pull it. Fine. It's a very interesting thing because if you learn the mission,
and this might be totally stupid. If she's a nida, so the hachaka they can't hold the same thing. No.
Yes, the poskim discuss that. They say for this it's not. They say for this is not a problem.
Okay.
Because they're doing it to get divorced. It's not. Same thing if it's a chuppahs nida. They say, why can the chassan put the ring on? Because when he's putting the ring on, they're not married. But you do, you're right. You get into alumnus here with the toises, like what's happening? Is it happening at the same time? Is it happening at different stages? But this is your classic example, and it's easy to understand, so it's kedai to point it out, I think, where if you learn the Mishnayos, just the Mishnayos without the Gemara or the Rav, so you're going to say, okay, if somebody comes into Bezdin, and each one's holding onto a talus. So you say, okay, what's the psak? So you say, Yachlaiku, right? Each one makes a shua, and you split it. That's not the din. From our Gemara, it's not the din. That's only the din when they're holding on to the, what do you call it? The fringes, the tassels. If they're holding on to the actual talis, the din is very clear. Each one gets what's on their hand and they split the rest. Right? It's mamish a classic case of why you can't paskin from a Mishnah. Right? You need the mefarshim. And the Rav says it, as far as I remember, the Rav says it in the Mishnah. Right? Which is why the Shlosh says that nowadays, because of the Rav, and I think maybe he says the other Mefarshim, you really yaitz learning Shas by learning Mishnayos. This is just a plug for the Peah. Even though we don't have to give Yerushalmi on the Peah, right? It's a plug. It's a plug for that. But it's a very interesting thing that it totally changes Pshat. This Gemara totally changes Pshat, Pashup Pshat in the Mishnah. Okay, Amar Rava. This next Gemara, another one I don't understand. Amar Rava, im hoise talis musheves cholkin. Let's say there's gold in this talis. So then you split it. You still split it. So Gemara says, Pshita, why shouldn't you split? Why should the psak change if there's gold in this talis? We're talking about where, I don't know why the Gemara decides to change to Aramaic here, because Dava, Zion and Dalet in Aramaic are interchangeable. So it goes from calling it Zov to calling Dava. Okay. But either way, it's somewhere where the gold is in the middle. So Gemara says, okay, so what? The gold's in the middle. Hanami Pshita. This is also Pasha. Rabbaran's mashal this morning for the island for this, a good mashal is the Chassidisha, the Rebbes, with the gold, with the silver going through the middle of their talis. Right? You have, a lot of Chassidim have the, what do you call it? The Atorah with the silver, but the Rebbes have a silver, a few rows of silver going all the way across that talis, right? So that's the case here. I mean, here it's talking about gold. So when I say hanami pshita, that's also pashut. So about where the gold, it's off center, so it's closer to one of the guys. Mao the same normally plug hachi. So he says to him, "Hey, you're cutting it up. Let's cut it up this way." So meaning, if you cut it up that way, Rashi says to the width of it. So then one guy's going to get all the gold. Kamash Malon, that the Amrle my chazit the plug. I'll tell you, let me just the Amrle my chazit the plug hachi. Who says you should split it that way? Split it this way, right? And therefore, both guys are going to get gold. Akiva, what are you bothered by that?
If we're talking about Shnai Metalis, we're obviously not talking about Shnai Meduka Metalis because that's you get to keep whatever you're holding, and the rest is Yachlei even. Why would Shnai Metalis be any different? We don't know who owns what part of this talis. There's no proof because you're just holding the fringes. So you have a din to half. That's the din. The din is Yachlaiku. But we don't know. Right. Why would we think we would split it one way or another? There's no way it's clearly not because you're holding one side or the other side, because the fringes don't prove anything. It doesn't prove any bias to a specific part. Therefore, why would you have a havamina that I'd get a specific part of it? It's a shiloh of whether the din is yachlaiku on half, but we don't know where that half is, or is a shiloh of who owns what, but we don't. It's not like a shiloh specifically what part of the talis you own. We never had a havamina that we had
Why not? Why not? We had an Anansadi on the Mishnah's case.
We don't know what part.
Yeah, the Anansadi is what they're holding.
A specific part.
The half that he's holding. That's what the Anansadi is. That's exactly what it is. The half that he's holding.
He's not holding half.
Even Adukib, he's not holding half. The Anansadi said that the half that he's holding.
Well, Adukim has a different din when it comes to the Yachleiku, according to some. Adukim is no shaykhus in this case.
Fine. So the Anansadi was that the half that he is mutzikin, quote unquote.
He's not being mutzikin any of that. He's holding fringes.
All right, listen, Akiva, on this one,
that's what the Gemara said.
Why would you think you should split it one way and not another?
Because I don't understand any of this. Because I don't think you're holding anything, so it doesn't really matter to me.
I don't know.
They're holding opposite ends of the talis. Why would you split it? Why you're supposed to split it evenly? Why would you split it in a way that one guy gets the gold part and the other guy doesn't? Because the one guy is muksik. Well, leave the word muksik out. But one guy is, let's say it's a golden atara. One guy's holding the tassels an inch away from the atara. The other one's holding the tassels all the way at the bottom of the bag. So if I say yachlaiku, I would, the literal type of yachlaiku is split it down the middle. Each one gets the half that they're holding.
Right.
That's what I would think. Kamashvala, no, it's all in value. It's not in mitzias.
And the Gemara is not saying
if you cut the whole thing, if you cut the thing in half, however you cut it in half, everybody loses because once it's not a whole, it's a two halves. So why don't you think of the whole thing and whatever the value is of the whole thing?
Rachman, no one's saying it means literally. Even when I said literally, I didn't mean it. But that's where it comes from.
That's coming up in the next.
Cut it in half. But since you don't want to cut it in half because then everyone holds, he's splitting the value.
You said the word literally and you didn't mean that?
I did, but that's where it comes from.
He
really what we should do is split it literally in half.
Yeah.
Literally,
I didn't mean that's the outcome. That's the beginning.
Listen.
Literal in the beginning, and the outcome is in value.
David, you have grounds for appeal now. That's all. He left you grounds for appeal.
In the next stop, the kasha is going to get stronger because we're not talking about splitting the actual talis. Here it's mashma, we're splitting the actual talis. The Gemara in the next stop says that that's not what we're doing. All right. But we'll see. Let's see weiter. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Shnayim Medukim b'shtar. Two guys are holding on to a star. Now, once we start with star, then we're already, because a star is going to be different because there's nothing worth, a star is not worth anything. However, it's worth paper, but it's what's written in the star that's the issue. So how do you go about if two guys come into Bezdin holding on to a star? Now what do you do? All right, so that's going to just really make things complicated. So two guys are holding on to a star. The lender says, Shalihu, it's my star, and it fell from me, and I found it. Right, and therefore, when he says that, it means, and the guy never paid me back. Right, because basically, once you pay back your loan, then unless you're a real fool, you take back the star from the lender so that he can't ask you to pay twice. Right? So the lender's tiny fell from him, he found it. But Loiva Amar, this is where it's interesting. Loiva says, Shalcha, and this is going to be very negay in the Machlokes in the Gemara. The Loiva Amar Shalchahu, yeah, it's yours. Right? Uparativ Lacha, but I already paid it. Meaning he could have denied the whole thing. He didn't deny the whole thing. He agreed that there was a loan here. He just paid it back. Right? So what do you do? So so what you have to do is you have to approve. Now what do you call it? Approve it. You have to be mekayim it. You have to certify it. You have to certify it with the signatures to make sure the signatures are correct, right? And then if that's the case, then it goes to the malva. Yeah, because it goes with the chazaka that you would destroy a star if it's paid back. Divi Rebbe. That's Shitas Rebbe. You split it. Okay, then Nafali Yad Dayan. Let's say it falls into the hands of a Dayan. I know what the Gemara thinks it means that the Dayan found it. Lo Yetzi Olam is the Dayan shouldn't say anything. Just put it away and don't say anything. It is in its chazaka. Fine. So now the Gemara is going to analyze this whole thing. So Amar Mar. So you be Mekayim the star with the signatures. You certify v'gavi malva kule, and then the malva can collect the entire debt. The lesle masnisin shnayim oichsin, does he not hold of the mission of shnayim oichsin that you're supposed to split it? Why does the malva win over here, right? In the case where they both come in with a holding on to a talis, we say they split it. So how come here when they both come in holding on to a star, we're giving it all to the malva if you can prove that it was a legitimate star? No, so we're changing shot. If he confirms the star, what do you call it? Confirm? What was it? Certifies. If he certifies the star, then everybody holds he split it. The machlokes is where they're not mekayim the star. Rebbe savar moide b'star shekasu tzarich l'kaima. If somebody is moide that the star is written, still you have to be mekayim it, which is interesting because you'd think the loiva is masking that the star was written. So why do we have to confirm it? V'makayim le polik. And if they are makayim it, then they split it, like we said before. V'loy makayim le. And if they're not makayim the star loy polik, then we don't split it. My timer. Why not? Meaning loy polik and the loiva wins, right? Right? Because if you don't do anything with it, the guy doesn't have to pay anything back. So my timer. Chaspa ba'almahu. What is a star? A star is just chaspa ba'alma. It's just what do you call a chaspa? Broken earthenware. Man komash vilei lahai shtara loiva. Who's the one that made this thing into a star? The loiva. Hakamar the priyan. He said it was paid. Basically, this is a migu. All right, Rebbe's saying that we're going to believe this guy because if he was lying, he could have lied a lot better. He could have just said this is not a legitimate star. He didn't do that. He admitted that it was a legitimate star, but he said he paid it back, right? So it must be that he's saying the truth. It would be a much simpler way to lie to get out of this. What?
How could he say it's not a legitimate star? Whoa.
Meaning, if he's a liar anyways, what's the easier way? What's the easier way to get out of it?
I don't know. How could he say it's not a good star? It's a good star. It has Adam, it has everything. It has a signet. What?
He's saying it's a star mezuyev. It's a forged star, which always
so
works.
It says it's forged. So you can say anything is forged. What does that mean? You own your house. It's a forged mortgage. You don't know. I own your house. Well, it's forged. Your papers are forged. Well,
you're talking from the perspective of an honest person. We're talking. Amigo is always from the perspective of a dishonest person. If he was dishonest, he would say a much better time. It's a forged star. You don't say that for us. I mean, therefore, he must be honest, because if he was dishonest, he has a much better time.
Well, his actual taina is Shtar Mezuyev. His better taina was to be Parati.
No, Parati is less of a lie. He did say Parati. No?
Yeah. He said
Parati. Yeah, you're right. Parati and then the Shtar Mezuyev.
Meaning the easier way to lie would have been just to deny and say, like Gershon is saying, that the star is just the guy faked it, right? That would be the easier way. This that he didn't say, that must be he's saying the truth, right? Yeah.
I think there's enough focus here in the Achrayim if this is because of Pesha Asa or it's a regular Migu.
So Yaakov, but this is not a Migu Haitzi over here?
No, because he's saying it's his. It's not Haitzi.
I know, but they're both mostly good at.
Yeah, but his Migu is that it's mine. I paid it up. That must be true, and therefore he's not being might see anything. Nothing's happening now. No payments going anywhere.
Right. Okay, but anyway, so that's Rebbe's sheet. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, like the other way around, it's not a migu. Shimon Gamliel says, "Moide b'shtar shekasu ain't tzarich l'kaima." You don't need mekayim. Bava gav delay mekayim lay, and even though he wasn't mekayim, it's still yachloiku. Right? You still have to split it, right? Because he's clearly not saying he's not going with this migu. Right? But meaning the reason is pashtus is the reason is because he's going with that lie. I think that's sort of what Rabbanan was getting at. He goes with that lie because you can't disprove it. It's much harder to disprove. Meaning, if he comes in there and he says that there was a false star, so that's probably easily or more easily provable. But if he says I paid it back, so then that's much harder to prove, right? So that's a pshan in the machlokes. Fine, nafali adayin lo yitzi olamas. But if a dayan finds it, then he shouldn't say anything. On Talmud Beis now, ma'ishno liyad dayan. Why? Because a dayan found it, does it change the din? After he finds a star, that meaning if they find, how do you say it? If you find a star that would already fell into the dayan's hands, what does that mean? What's the case? The kasab a henpick. There was a henpick. That's like right with the autographed balls. What do they call it?
verification.
Authenticator.
Authenticated, and I call it authenticated by the sports memorabilia. It's authenticated, right? So it was authenticated by the Bezdin. That's a henpik. Lo yitziu alamis. So then you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Meaning it's achiyav elio, right? Okay.
So now it means if a stranger found
a strange, right? Anybody who finds it and it has that authentication from a Bezdin, then leave it to Eliyahu Navi. Right? Yeah, I mean the question is, meaning even if the guy announces it, we're going to tell him who cares. Just we're not doing anything with this star. Yeah, fine. So v'loimi boy like kosabei hedbik, and it goes. We don't need to say that if it wasn't written a hempik, the ikalamember kosav lilvois v'loy lava. Maybe he wrote the star to, meaning he was in negotiations for a loan, and then he wrote the star, but then he didn't actually end up lending the money, right? Meaning because a henpik would show that authenticated that there was a debt here. Even if you write a henpik, which means that it was a legitimate loan, don't give it back. Why? Because we're afraid, we're concerned that maybe the loiva is saying the truth and that he did pay it back. Rabbi Yossi says it's the chazak of lechashin leperoin, and we're not choshen that was paid back, and therefore he has to give it. He has to give it back. The loy chas, and what it says, loy chas Rabbi Yossi leperoin, and it's Rabbi Yossi not choshen leperoin. But Tanya Motza star ksuba b'shuk, if a guy finds a ksuba in the street, when the Baal is Maida that he never paid his wife for the ksuba, which is obviously talking about not where he died, it's talking about where he divorced her. So Yachsa Leisha, so then you give the ksuba back to the wife. Ain't a Baal Maida, if the Baal is not Maida, which means that he says, I already paid her, Lo Yachsa Lo Lezeh Lo Lezeh. You don't give it back to this one or to that one. Right? Meaning like you just leave it. Rabbi Yossi, that's a Tanakama. Rabbi Yossi, if she's still married, then we give it back to the Isha, because the default is that a man does not pay his ksuba debt, calls man that he's married to his wife. Nis Armal and Nisgarsha, if she became a widow or she got divorced, then lo yasser, lo lezev, lo lezev, then don't give it back to each other. So, but what do you see Rabbi Yossi says? I mean, not each other. You don't give it to either one. Right? So why not? Because you're chayshed that the man paid for it. So now you see by ksuba, Rabbi Yossi holds that he pays, that we're chayshed that the guy paid for the ksuba. And by regular debt not. Right? So this is Peretz's favorite teretz, but I guess he took off already. So when it says epoch, let's just switch it. Switch the shitas. Nafali yadayin lo yatzi olamas. If it fell into a dayan's hands, don't take it out. It says in chazak. Okay, so now you switch the shitas. Now you have a steer from the rabbanon. You have a steer from the rabbanon. So stark subakula, Rabbi Yossi. So we're gonna say. So it's interesting. So is this a new teretz? I would think that the word Ella should be put here, because it seems like it's a different teretz, but
no, it's the same teretz, it's Yaakov.
Yeah, because it's not stark.
We're sticking with Epoch, and now the Gemara is explaining how we retire Rabbanan.
I'm saying, so then why do you have to repeat that for? Why do you have to repeat stark suba kula Rabbi? I mean, you're right. It is Rabbi Yossi, but why?
Because the Gemara just asked the question: Kasher Rabbanan.
What?
The Gemara says, we have a question. Right. We just did Epoch. Now it's the question is flipped onto the Rabbanan. So the Gemara says,
right. So then just say
is all Rabbi Yossi.
So just say Chesura Mechsera.
Right, but the Gemara is saying the case to Shtar Ksuba is Rabbi Yossi. It's not an Ella. Ella would say that the teretz you just gave before is not a good teretz. This is a continuation, really. This is answering how that teretz of Epoch works.
There is no Epoch, though.
There is Epoch according to this teretz.
There can't be an Epoch if there's no two Shitas. There's only one Shita.
Epoch that Rabbi Yossi is the one who holds that you can't, what's it called?
No, we're just adjusting the
and that's all Rabbi Yossi in the brisa.
No, we're just doing the Chesura Mechsa on the Ksuba part, not on the star part. Okay, it just threw me off a little bit. Either way, it's the star Ksuba Kula Rabbi Yossi. Enochanami, the whole star Ksuba is Rabbi Yossi, meaning we're sticking with switching the opinions. But Chesura Mechsa Rachidan is something missing. This is why we have to learn. Ein Baal Maida. If the Baal is not Maida, meaning he says he didn't pay her the Ksuba, right? So lo yachzer, lo lezer, lo lezet, don't give it back to either one of them. That's only shenesav and sheneskarsha. That's if they were divorced or she was widowed. But if she's still married, yachzer leisha. You have to give it back to the woman. Why? Rabbi Yossi Aimer, because Rabbi Yossi holds. The Bach sticks in Divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi Aimer, oida tachas baila. When he's still under the Baal, Yasal Isha, he gives it back to the Isha. The Samuel is Gasha, Lo Yasal, Lo Lezev, Lo Lezeh, don't give it back, not to this one, not to this one. Fine. So that's the Chesura Mechsa. Papa Amar Lo Ilam Lo Tepel. Don't switch it. Rabbi Yossi, L'Devrayim de Rabbanon Kamala. Rabbi Yossi is going with the Rabbanon's Shita. L'Didi Afilu Nesamel and Gasha. According to me, even if she became an Almana or divorced, Nami Lo Chashin L'Piroin, we're still not Chash V'Piroin. Because Rabbi Yossi is not choshev for payment. That it's cool, according to the Rabbanon, who are choshev that the guy paid it back. Idoli mias, she should at least be moeded by ida tachas paila when she's still married to her husband, the yasal isha, that it should go, the ksuba should go back to the wife, the la bas piraini, because why would he give her the ksuba if he's still married to her? He doesn't have to pay her, so why? Who pays things when they don't have to? Formerly Rabbanon, Amar, Tzrariat was saying, the Rabbanon said back to him, no, maybe he gave her a whole tzrari. Tzrari means he gave her like a package deal. But it meaning he gave her like a whole wallet or a box full of things. Included in there was the ksuba. Right? Meaning he was giving it to her. Right? He wasn't real. I mean, he was sort of, she was gonna watch it or hold on to it. And included that was the ksuba. So the chachamim were choshev that that's maybe what happened. Fine. Ravina has a third teretz. Ravina amar epach kamaisa. Switch the first ones, right? Meaning till now we were switching the ksuba one. Now the Ravina is saying switch the regular loan one. The time of the rabbanon hacha mishum dechashin l'shtei ksubas. Here the chachamim are choshev for two ksubas. Meaning they're afraid that maybe she lost the ksuba, and then they wrote another ksuba. This is why when somebody loses a ksuba, right? We discussed a couple of weeks ago, right? When somebody loses a ksuba, you need to write a second ksuba. You don't just write a second ksuba. You have to write a whole. It's got a whole lashon in the second ksuba about that there was another ksuba, and this is replacing that ksuba, so you don't have this issue. But the Rabbanan will choshev that maybe there's two ksubas. But Rabbi Yossi, what about Rabbi Yossi? He's not choshev two ksubas. Yeah, and he's not choshev for two ksubas. Fine. Okay, so now we're on to another knech, as we call it, of a star. So now there's two sections to a star. There's a typhus, which is basically the standard terminology of the star. You know, like when you have a ksuba, right? So the ksuba has the standard, what do you call, template, right? Standard template. And then you have to, right? Yeah, and then you have to fill in the names and the dates, etc., etc. So those are two parts of the star. The typhus is the template, let's call it that, and the tyrif is the ikr, right? So that's where they're both holding on to the template, or both are holding on to the main part. If one of them is holding on to the template, and one of them is holding on to the main part, the main juice of it. This one takes the typhus, and this one takes the tyrif. They just split it. So what's going on here? So I'm going to ask, even if is Rabbi Yochanan saying that he split it, even if one holds on to the typhus and one holds the tyrif? Didn't we say on Amud Aleph that when you're splitting a talis, each one gets, right, not like the pshat in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah is not talking about, our Mishnah, again, like we said, is only talking about where he hold on to the fringes, right? But other than that, each one gets with what their hand is holding. So if he holds the typhus, he gets a typhus, and if he holds the typhus, the guy gets a typhus. Right? So the kai typhus by mitzi, similar Gemara with the gold. Somewhere where the typhus is in the middle of the shtar. So So what's the chiddush? Of course, they're going to split it. Where the typhus is on next to one of them, one side. Mao the same plug hachi. You would think he's going to say split it. There's a kamashman. My chaz is to plug to hachi, plug hachi. Why do you see to split it this way? Split it this way. All right. Okay. So then Amar Ravach we do the Ravino the Rabbi Lazar the Amar Zen Noitul Typhus is Zen Noitul Tara. But according to Rabbi Lazar, who says this one takes the Typhus, this one takes the Tara of Lamalei. What are they doing with this? What are they? Are they using it as a bottle closer, a cap? What are they doing with it? What are you saying that they're splitting the Torah and the typhus? Right? Meaning, it sounds like now the Gemara is thinking that you're just splitting the actual shtar. Right? Because either way, if you have the tyrif or the typhus, that's enough to collect on the loan. So what are we talking about here? Semantics, that's what the Gemara is saying. Well, what's the difference? How much parchment you're going to have, or how much paper you're going to have to cover over your bottle? Amrale, so he said, Ladami. No, I mean, it goes with its worth. We're not talking about splitting the shtar. We're going to split how much the shtar, how much the tarif is worth, and how much the typhus is worth. Damar hachi. Shtar this space man, a shtar that has this man in it, kama shavi, how much is it worth? Oh, the less space is man, kama shavi, and how much is a shtar that doesn't have a time as man in it? What's the difference? The shtar this space man, if the shtar has a date in it, gabi mishabdi, then since it has a date, you can go collect from fields that this guy sold after the loan, right? He has liens. We have this a lot. When somebody borrows money and then he goes and sells his fields, those fields go to the lender first. They get taken away from the purchaser because they are meshubah. The guy had no right selling land if he owes somebody money. Right? But you cannot do that if there's no time written in the shtar. Because if there's no time written in the shtar, how do you know when to go collect from people that bought it? The other one, you're not going to collect from mishavdi. So then, and whoever's holding, whichever part the other one's holding, so then that's where you're going to have to split the difference, right? Meaning well, that's not splitting the difference. It really depends who's holding it, right? If the lender's holding it, so then he is going to get more money because he has a stronger shtar in his hand. If he's not holding the one with his man, then he doesn't have a strong shtar in his hand. So then the Gemara says, and when we say that he has to split it, right? Ladami, it also means for money. It doesn't just mean to cut it up. Because if you don't say this and it just means to split it, you're just splitting the piece of paper. So what are you telling? We're saying Shnaim Oxam Batalis, right? Each one's holding talis. You're gonna cut it down the middle. You're gonna know what's it gonna be worth. What's the shirt gonna be worth? So when it says Hole Kasha, that's not a kasha. Why? On Tamar Aleph, the Chazil Ketanim. Because no, you can take the shirt and you can make I guess you'll have to do some sewing to fix it, but you can have a shirt. You split an adult shirt, and you split it two ways, and one can go, and they each one go for a kid. Okay. And this that Rava said that we're going to try and prove it from this, that you have a gold in the talis, and you could split it. The polyglot. Does that mean also you're going to split it? You're going to make them lose. You're going to lose. It's going to lose value. So Gemara says that's not a proof either. It's for kings, little kids that are kings that will have gold in it. Okay, so what about that case? If two of them are riding on a behema, right? So we said that they split it. Hachanami, the palgil, you're going to say split it. Hafsadu, you're going to lose the animal. So bishlam tahira chazil avasar. Good. So if it's a tar animal, so you'll split it, and each one will get the meat. Elatemeya. What are you going to do with the tummy animal? You're going to make it be lost. Ella, the dummy. So it must be then anytime we're talking in all these scenarios that you're going to split it, it has to be for the money. Hachanami ledami. Therefore, here too, it means for splitting it for the worth. It doesn't mean splitting it physically. It means splitting it for what it's worth.
The European Union came out today about the shrita, a bit psak, bit today.
What did it say?
It said that they can stun animals before they kill them. Like they have that law now in Belgium and Greece, and they want to do it to all Europe.
Yeah, in Europe too. Wow.
Yeah. It was today.
Wow. Okay, let's hope we have Basuras Taivas on that. Okay, let's say the Tillim.
Yaakov, just to go back to David and Melech for 1 second before you say the Tillim, which is David and Melech, obviously.
Yeah.
I was thinking the Sharich, that's just to make David Superman in every possible category. Because he's Superman in everything. So he's Superman in that, whatever that Mila is, I don't understand the Sharich, but he's total Superman in every possible facet of human life. David Melech is Superman.
Okay, I can't disagree.
If they had pies, he would always they would tell you that he didn't have to wash for less than a whole pie because he never ate less than a whole pie. You know. And if he had ice cream, he ate every time. He ate every flavor in Haagen-Dazs. Well, that Baskin Robbins. Every time they went for ice cream, they brought back every flavor for David.
He was always
Superman.
To the extreme.
He's Superman in everything.
Yeah.
He was the Paisik Hadar. Obviously he wrote Tillim. He bought even though he couldn't build the base of Mikdash, but he bought the karka for the base of Mikdash. He was Superman. So and that too, whatever kivishing he has 100 chicks living in the house, and he was kivish himself from the 100 chicks, whatever that means.
Yeah, and economy. Yeah. All right. So let's see. So tell him, pay Gimel. Shimmer's Malasov. Elim Adam Ilacha Tefra Shatish Kod El Kinei Vechi Yamon Masanecha Masura Shalom Peirim Soiri Seatzel Tzvanecha. Amru Luchu Nachidim Egoy Vilo Yizor Hashem Yisrael Loid Kino to Lev Yachta Valecha B'Sich Rois Valei Adam Yishmael Miyava Agrim Gvol V'Aman V'Amalek Pleshes Yesh V'Tzar. Kam Asher Nilaim HaYisrael V'nei Leitzel Aselam Kimidion Kisisru Yavam Nachal Kisha Nishmedu Ve'Dor HaYadam L'Adamah. She said, "In the event, because of the zeal, someone who cannot see him, shall Amru Nishalon ways noise Eliam. Eliah, she said, "Kagago Kakashlu Fnei Ruach Kesh Davar Yoach Lo Atalei Tarim King Ted the Famous Sarechu V'Sefasol Sevalim Malef Name Kolum Vach Shimchan They know Yivoshu V'Lo Adei V'Yachu V'Yavedu V'Yedu Piat Shimchan They know V'Dechel Yona Koloretz. Achenu Koves Yisrael and Osun V'Sarav Shiva Yam Demim Yam V'Yim Moshe Bakim V'Rachim Alim Yitzayim Yitzayim V'Rachim V'Feil Alim V'Shuva The Google. Ashtal Bagalov is man Kariv and Neymar Omein. All right. Suras Tavis. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I waited till the end, but I have no clue what it means to hold a star and own the Tyrif or the Typhus.
What do you mean? What does it mean? Why?
Because normally we don't split a star. What does it mean to own half of it? I write a star as the loiva. I'm writing a star for the malva. I don't get to keep part of the star. What is it? How do you even go ahead and split a turf and a typhus and say, well, the difference is what you're gonna have to is what you really are going after. It's one star. Either you're able to be tevea with it, or you're not able to be tevea with it. They're not partial stars that each are worth $50 or whatever it is. It's one star. Either the Metzia is he never paid for you, or the Metzia he did pay for you. What does the Tyrif and Typhus have to do with anything? What are we talking about here? It's shaya for me to own half of a baguette. How does it shaya to own half of a star in regards to the tviyah of the moment on that star?
I had a different question. What is? Isn't it split throughout the star? I mean, are there different sections? I mean, like a ksuba, right? So in the middle there, you stick in the information. How are you holding on to one unless this is what's bothering you? How are you holding on to one and not the other?
I don't know. Let's say the Metzia is shy that each one's in a different part of the star. Let's just say, who cares? That's not how a star works. It's not like each one's worth $50 because you're holding on to different parts of it.
Right.
And you don't own half of a star. It's like I always say, you can't be a little pregnant. Either the star was paid or it wasn't paid.
Right.
What are we talking about here? The whole last element like just completely ignores how a star is so different than an actual talus, being mostly in a talus.
Muskim.
It suspends reality.
Yes, I had a hard time with this stuff. I mean, I don't all these stuff.
Like the Gemara is going with the assumption it works exactly the same way. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gemara has questions about Shnai Dukim. Whatever you're holding, you should keep. You can shoot. The Gemara at one point gets to the point. Oh, so you're trying to take it with Litzor piece of Chayzu. The Gemara gets back to reality, and then the Gemara goes, no. You're trying to own the tire for typhus. What? How's that an answer?
Right.
I don't know. I missed it. I completely missed the boat here.
Me too. Me too. What should I tell you?
Being mofsik in something, basically you're trying to be mofsik in a tvia, but like, I don't know what that has to do with anything. The star itself is just a piece of paper. It's not the tvia itself.
Right.
It's a riot to the tvia, but it's not the actual tvia. I mean, I'm pretty sure Gershon at one point was discussing that the other on a different daf, but I don't know what this means to own a star or to be mostly in a star.
Well, if it was the whole star, you would understand.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the difference. Here we're giving them as if we're giving them half each.
I know when the Gemara discusses Tyrus and typhus, it's like it's actually discussing what you actually get.
Because
as if it's possible to own,
it makes a difference which way you split it.
Time. No, like when it comes to time, the Gemara says it's possible for you to both own it at the same time. It's not possible for us to both have a din to the star at the same time. It's not possible. Either I paid for it and you have to give it back to me, or I didn't pay for it and you got to keep it tomorrow, and you'd be teveh with it.
But that's why I said before the even the Maskana Sagamora now that it means the dummy, it means you still have to imagine as if you cut it in half. So with a star, that's what the Gemara answered Rabbi Yochanan. What difference? What does he say?
I know that's what I was asking on.
So that's what I think is the difference. If you would cut it in half vertically, so each one would get half the typhus and half the tyrus.
Right.
It would be completely useless. You're basically giving it to the typhus. So regardless of who's holding what, we always split it typhus and tyrus. Therefore, you split the difference between the that's all we split. Because no matter which half the Malva gets, he can always claim something. So he can only claim now half of the difference between the Chasam Shabbat.
No, I get it. The Gemara is actually saying it's a dummy thing. It is a dummy thing. It's not an actual. And what you're trying to claim is half of the difference.
Yeah, but the first stage is Taka split it between the typhus and the typhus.
Right, and economy.
That is what we're doing, even though we're not doing it in physically. But yeah.
Yeah. All right, I gotta go.
I don't know. I'm a little perturbed.
Yeah. It's Metzia.
Yeah.
I asked somebody. I asked somebody this past Shabbos. I said, "Are you guys Shnaim Adukim Metal? Are you Shnaim Adukim this week, or are you just Shnaim Adukim this week?"
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, "I'm Adukim." I'm like, "No, you're not." It's some yeshiva guy who's been learning it for months and months. I said, "No, you're not." I said, you know the difference between me and you is I know that I don't know. I said, you think you spent a whole winter's man on above Metzia, you know. You might know a lot of things, but if you walk out and think you actually know, I think you missed the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the whole Tuck for Kind business.
Actually, I'm quite impressed. I'm on one of the Shirley, what's his name?
Bornstein.
I'm on one of his. I'm on two of his chats, not his, but his guys.
Yeah.
Some of them are really old.
Yeah.
People
really,
spend
time
really
on this.
Impressive.
People care.
I have a phone chavrusa on one of his things. He's a 60-something-year-old lawyer in Brooklyn. I spent hours on the phone with him learning sugyas.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean he's a full-time lawyer and he's really holding in the dock.
I wish I was. Yeah.
I'm just Eiches.
I'm asking. I'm on your.
And I
say
I don't even say kulishly. I just say chetzishly. I'll take a quarter.
I think just because we're always arguing with each other, I think we're Eiches on opposite parts.
I don't need more than a quarter. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
All right. I get the knock.
Sag gesund.
Okay.